Hello everyone, welcome back to my camera blog, a place where we like to talk about, most of the time, analog film cameras rather than digital, although we will talk about digital from time to time. So a word of warning, you may hear the animal kingdom outside. This location in Calgary, Canada is home to the abundant magpie, and right next to me is a 50-foot pine tree, and they squawk. They don't really have a very pretty bird song like the songbird. So if you hear the squawking, you're going to have to put up with it. I'm not about to throw rocks up the tree because the magpies will probably attack me. They're pretty big over in Calgary, but they're here, so let's just deal with it. I don't mind them. I think these birds are so smart. Every time I come out with a camera, I suddenly see 4 or 5 of them, and they sit there up in the tree squawking and looking at me. Maybe they do it to annoy me, who knows? But back to the world of analog cameras. Analog cameras, mainly film cameras. Now, the inevitable change of blending electronics with mechanical cameras was bound to happen, and Nikon, in its desire and passion to be the #1 camera maker of the world back in the 60s, 70s, the competition between the multitude of camera manufacturers was so intense, brutal. Mechanical devices, are notoriously difficult to design and build, and I can imagine that the camera makers back in the 60s and 70s spent small fortunes on trying to refine their technology marvel. So one of the cameras that I actually have that incorporated the electronics world was the Nikon EL. They came out with the Nikon EL, and they consequently made further upgrades to the EL series. In 1977, they came out with the EL2, of which I have one today. And here it is. This particular sample of the EL2 is actually, looks like a new camera. There's not a single scratch on the black paint. Now this camera is all metal. It is all brass painted black. Virtually no plastic on this camera. Virtually none at all. Very similar to the Leica MP that people now pay $6,000–7,000 for because it is a wonderfully made all metal brass camera, and pretty much all mechanical. In fact, the Leica MP has less electronics than this 1977 marvel. I'll call it a mechanical marvel. So this camera, the electronics were, they weren't vast. When you consider the digital cameras today, I do have a Nikon D5, and it has a manual that has 300 pages or more, and it's in pinhead size print. The manual has vast information. The digital domain has put every trick in the book into a camera, and there's an awful learning curve on these, pro level digital cameras. This camera was considered pretty much a professional, not the most professional, but I put it as a professional class film camera. And the manual on this one is 48 pages only, and it is not pinhead print. The cameras of yesterday were definitely much simpler to use. You didn't have to rely on your memory. You know, so few function on these film cameras that you could actually concentrate on your photography rather than say, how did I do that again, to do a certain function as you do in the digital domain. Okay, the EL2, shutter speed 1000 to 8th of a second. Amazing. 8 seconds, I should say, 8 seconds. Single stroke film advance. Shutter speed control on the top. 125 flash sync. Flash goes right on there. Back of the camera has a orange light and a white button. You press that button. If your battery's good, I don't know if you can actually see that, probably not. The light will glow orange. It will tell you that you have battery life, which is great. Very similar to the cameras of the day, except this one has aperture priority, silicon photodiode light meter, center weighted, very accurate. Aperture priority, meaning that you set the aperture and the speed will select itself in auto mode. So most of the time I use this in manual mode. The superb light meter is a needle, black needle, full scale analog meter on the left side of the viewfinder inside. Very clear, very precise and easy to use. When you change the shutter speed, there is a green needle. As you rotate this knob, the green needle inside moves up or down. Now to get the correct exposure in manual mode, all you have to do is line up the green needle to the black needle and you will have perfect exposure. This has a button lock and is also the power switch. It's all combined into this camera. At the bottom, when this camera has got to the end of the roll of film, you actually have to press this button and then you can flip this up. Let me do that for you. You can see it maybe. Roll it around and wind the film. To open the camera, you actually pull this up and the camera back will pop open. So now you can hear the noisy magpies. I can see them. There's a couple of them squawking away. So likely I should go inside to drown out the magpie noise. And they must be having a magpie meeting, a meeting of the minds by the magpie. And perhaps they're discussing this camera. Maybe they want to peck at it. I don't know. So let's go inside and see what we've got. So here we go, the beautiful Nikon EL. How do I know it's an EL? Well, on the back of it, right there, I don't know if you can see that, it actually says EL2. Nikon, made in Japan. So that is true. So let's start at the bottom. Typical tripod mount. These connectors were for the motor drive. Motor drive in the 70s weren't that good and bulky. I don't have the motor drive for this one, so we don't need to talk about it, but that's the actual contacts. This button here is the kind of like shutter release. When the camera comes to the end of the roll of the film, to rewind the film back into the canister, you must first depress this to release the shutter mechanism. And then what you do, you press that. Let me get this out here. Flip out lever. You wind it until the tension changes. it'll suddenly become more free. And then to extract the film canister from the camera, you actually just pull this up, and as you pull this up, this will pop open. Now I have a roll of film in here, so I probably shouldn't do that right now. The ASA is right here. You can change the ASA, press this button here. You have a button right here, you press that and you rotate the ring. So as well as ASA settings, you can do what they call exposure compensation. Now to do that, you have a lever here and you just rotate it. Not a lever, sorry, it's a collar. It's got a knurled edge. You actually just lift it up a small amount and then you rotate it. Now the Nikon manual says most of the time just leave this on 0. No exposure compensation. So that's that. Little red dot on the side here where my finger is, and the ASA number aligns to the red dot. Hot shoe for a flash. Now there's you slide a flash in here, you can't lock it in. It's a snug fit, but they don't have a lock, just so you know that. And this is designed for manual flashes, not these electronic flashes that'll do multitude of things. Just a regular plain analog flash will work suffice on that. Okay, shutter speed 1/1000 to 8 seconds. Amazing, considering this camera was made in 1977. Now this has aperture priority, the letter A. If I turn this dial, lines up with a dot here, aperture priority, which means that you set the aperture on the camera and the camera will do the shutter speed automatically. Now if you want to do this in analog mode, well, pretty easy. Set your shutter speed, maybe 125. You look through the camera, and inside the viewfinder you will see an analog moving needle scale, full scale light meter. And in the same scale you will see another green needle. You have a black needle for the light meter and a green needle for the aperture. Not the aperture, sorry, for the shutter speed. And to set the exposure, you just align the two needles so they overlap each other. And you can do that is just rotate the shutter speed and you will be able to see the green needle move up and down. As it moves up and down, just align it on top of the black light meter needle. Center weighted needle, silicon photodiode, which is a very good light meter, center weighted. The on-off switch here, this is dual function. This is a power switch. You rotate it to the left, and it's also a button release, meaning that this is a lock. It'll lock the shutter so you cannot accidentally fire it. So when this is turned off, you can't press the shutter. You must rotate this over. As we said before, a single sweep for film advance. I like these cameras, so simple. Now, this is a battery test. You have bring this down, you have a white button and an orange light. Let's see if we can, I don't have any, it's a very small button here. Can you see that? Does it come on? I can't see it from this angle, but that lights up an orange glow. That tells you that your battery is good. If this light does not light up, then there's something wrong with the battery and you should change it. Now, To change the battery, this camera is a one-off. Take the lens off. Make sure the camera is turned off. The manual says turn the camera upside down. Operate the mirror lockup. If I rotate that, you saw that move. And then right here there's a cover over the battery chamber. You just pull that down and gently push. Now you don't want the battery to fall inside the camera towards the shutter mechanism. What you need to do is you do that, lean it forward. Don't do it leaning back this way, lean it forward. As you take that cover, battery cover, you flip it down, gently press it according to the manual, and the battery should roll out. Okay, that's what it said. So let's put the lens back on to keep the dust out. Let me put the mirror back down. Mirror lock. That's the button right here. You rotate this knob there, and that's the mirror lock. Let's put the lens back on. This lens, 2.8, 20mm Nikon lens. A gorgeous lens to use, just excellent. Right here, this button here is the depth of field preview. So if you're on f11 and you press this button, as you look through the viewfinder, it will get a little bit darker, but you will see the function of the depth of field as a guideline, so you can do some experimentation with your film photography. What else can I tell you? Brass metal camera, electromechanical shutter. This camera will function without a battery at 90th shutter speed, 1/90th. Right here is a film counter. You can see that. I'm currently on, my eyes are so bad, what's that, 4? Right here, almost forgot, this camera still has a little plastic cap. That's a PC Connect for the flash. You can either go here or you can go here. Great, great camera. Metal shutter blades. I have to tell you, this camera, I consider this a pro camera. It is built so well. Some people might disagree with me, but I would, if I was a photographer in the 70s, when this was made in 77, I would have no problem using this camera as a everyday professional camera. Now, when I put this back to back to a Leica MP, these things are amazingly close to the same size. I can actually prove that to you. Here we are. And you can see they are almost the same size. Between here and here, here and here, and the Nikon EL, it's the same. The only little bit of extra height. In fact, the film advance on the Nikon EL is the same height as the Leica MP. The only little bit of extra height is on the prism and a tiny little bit there on the film advance. Now, of course, this is a Nikon lens, and this is the, let me have a look, it's a Carl Zeiss lens, so it's not the Leica lens, but they are much smaller, so the cameras will be lighter because the Leica lenses are usually more compact. This one is a 35mm, this one is a 20mm. So, in the Leica MP, less electronics than the Leica, I'm getting my words mixed up, than the Nikon EL. There is no aperture priority on this. The only electronics is the light meter. This one has a few extras. So a camera that's built in 1977 actually has more electronics than a modern day Leica MP. Enough of the Leica. Let's get this out of the way. I have numerous analog cameras. I have the Nikon FT2, FT3. I think this is a better camera than the Nikon FT2, FT3. Reliable? Well, I haven't put 1,000 rolls of film through this, but considering this camera today for the body only would be $2,000 US plus, I think one can expect a high level of quality. Nikon was always known for quality. So that's it.